Lucy Powell is the new deputy leader of the Labour Party. Reform face growing calls to remove the whip from one of their MPs, and the Greens continue to surge in the polls. There's a lot to talk about and unpack, so let's get political. Hello, welcome to Let's Get Political on Quays TV, a student political show where we discuss the big things happening in British politics. I'd like to welcome our guests, Will Phillips.
Hi.
Logan Singleton.
Hello.
And Charlie Waller.
Hi.
How are you all doing? You good? First ever
amazing.
show.
Good.
It is.
It's very, very exciting. So we've got 3 topics, and we'll start off with Lucy Powell. So Lucy Powell is the new deputy leader of the Labour Party. This was an election triggered by Angela Rayner's dramatic resignation after admitting to underpaying tax on a house purchase. Powell's victory was wildly expected, but only by a winning margin of 54 to 46%. What do we think about this then? Will?
I think that it's an interesting move for Labour because obviously she's not really your traditional Starmerite. So I'd say, is probably left of where the party is right now. So maybe bringing her in, we'll see slight policy change in terms of shifting towards that way. I mean, obviously, it's not a role in cabinet. She's already said that she plans to be more, on the ground campaigning for Labour. So maybe we'll see the policy change, the manifestos going forward in future elections. If she's still there, will be maybe more left. I mean, her voting record suggests that she's definitely on the left side of things. So it could be the start of Labour's transition to a more left-wing way of doing things, maybe as a response, obviously, to the popularity of the Green Party in recent weeks. This might be them trying to start finally shifting back towards maybe what we knew the Labour Party to be.
Yeah. I mean, Logan, there was only a 16% turnout for this. So does this really reflect what Labour members would have wanted?
It's always one of those things when you're looking at voting where it is just a percentage game. If you get people out to vote and the percentages change dramatically, 16% of the Labour grassroots base, depending on who are members, how many people are going to be looking at voting? I mean, a lot of people, there's larger turnouts, for example, for like Jeremy Corbyn with both young voters and older voters due to sort of how left he is, politically speaking. So it's one of those things where people might just be a bit disenfranchised with the Labour movement at the moment. They might not be seeing a point in getting involved in changes of people. So if a government or political party is changing leadership, I think most people just sort of kick back and go, we'll see how they are. Like for me, with Lucy Powell coming in, it's one of those. We'll see how she's going to be. As long as she's not, I guess, like underpaying. It's one of those big things with a scandal in the works. I think they need to do maybe better background checks, a bit more immersive.
Yeah, of course. I mean, Charlie, do you think this is a little bit awkward for Keir Starmer? Because, I mean, a couple of months ago, he sacked Lucy Powell from his cabinet. We know that Lucy Powell has spoken out about the mistakes that the government has made, like the winter fuel allowance. You've also got the Greater Manchester Mayor, who has endorsed Lucy Powell and been critical of Keir Starmer. So do you think that's going to be a little bit awkward, maybe?
I think it could be. I think realistically, Keir Starmer's been surrounded by awkwardness pretty much his whole time in power, given that he's not really left. I think that at the end of the day, Keir Starmer's the Prime Minister. He is going to have power over Lucy, no matter how much he campaigns for traditional Labour. I hope that Labour does make the switch, especially considering that Greens, come up on the rise. I hope they feel that pressure and they do go more towards traditional Labour, because I think it will please more people and it's just more Labour, really. But I think that if Keir Starmer wanted to keep his same approach, he can and he will. He's got the power to, and the low turnout suggests that even though she won, it doesn't show an overwhelming majority of people who wanted Lucy to be deputy.
Yeah, of course. Does anyone here think that Labour can change, go back to that traditional with Keir Starmer still?
I think it will be hard for them to be honest, with Keir Starmer at the helm. Obviously, he has become kind of known for the winter fuel cuts and other policies that are definitely unpopular, appealing more to the right. Obviously, reform has been a threat to him basically the entire time he's been Prime Minister, so he's been appeasing them more so than he's been leaning into the left policies that he won the Labour leadership on. He won it on a platform that was quite similar to Corbyn's. So I do think that obviously him going back on that now, becoming arguably central, maybe even centre-right in more recent months.
Yeah, of course, because you had that speech about where he said about Island of the Strangers, something like that. But you wouldn't think a left-wing government would say that.
No, you wouldn't. So you would probably assume that he is perhaps too far gone now. So, I mean, Powell was endorsed by Andy Burnham, who is the mayor of Greater Manchester, mayor of Manchester, and someone local to us. He's been on here.
As is Lucy Powell, actually.
As is Lucy Powell.
She's the MP for Manchester Central.
So, yeah, I think that Burnham's obviously is a left-leaning politician, and obviously he is one of the front runners, I'd say, to maybe come into Labour leadership late down the road if they decide to go that way. So I think it's telling that he's endorsed her, because I think that is a reflection of the way that the party is going, and perhaps could see Starmer be ousted maybe for the likes of an Andy Burnham.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Lucy Powell cannot do anything. We know Chancellor Rachel Reeves is not far away from delivering a much anticipated budget, which is expected to raise taxes. You've also got the facts in the Caerphilly by-election, where they lost their seat in 100 years they've held it for. So you kind of feel like it is too far gone. But I guess in 6 months' time we'll see, with the set of council elections coming up in England, Scotland and Wales, how they do. So we'll move on then to the next topic, which is all about Reform UK. So they face growing calls from the likes of the Liberal Democrats, Justice Secretary David Lammy, as well as Health Secretary Wes Streeting, who called it racist, from Sarah Potchin, the Reform MP for Runcorn, on a Talk TV phone-in show. So Potchin said, the viewer, and I'll quote what she said, was absolutely right, and it drives me mad when I see adverts full of black people, full of Asian people. She said it doesn't reflect our society, and your average white person, average white family is not represented anymore. How do you lot feel after hearing that?
I sort of think it's like funny in a way. Like if you look at if you're looking at it from a country perspective, we are a multicultural country. I mean, I don't know many. You'll find pockets of places that are either like really white or really black or whatever like that. It doesn't really matter. I mean, if you look at London, it really doesn't matter. Everywhere has got a mixed group of people, and that's because of things like immigration. People move all the time. You know, how many Americans do we have, coming to like the university, for example? It's one of those things where I just find it's funny. Like, companies are international. Each advert going to have to play to a certain player base. It's silly. The statistics that she was pulling up, they are in a sense correct. That the statistics are correct, but you can make statistics fit anything. So she's on about say if Disney Plus was doing all these string of adverts, and she was only looking at Disney Plus and saying all these adverts are just for black people or whatever like that, then okay, but that's because you've only looked at one section. I'd want to see what her statistics are basing it off. If she's looking at BBC, ITV, she's looking at Channel 4, Channel 5, I would want to see where she's drawing these statistics from. But again, this country is multicultural.
Of course, yeah. Charlie, do you think this is racist?
I do. Yeah, I do think it's racist. I think she is trying to raise a point that a lot of people do feel. So if you look at the top 500 adverts, 51% of the people in them were black, when black people would make up 5% of the population. A lot of people see that as an issue. I don't. You have to keep in mind that the last black-faced minstrel show on British television was in 1978. Our parents were alive to watch that. And I think we do a lot of making up to do. I think quota culture and casting and media is, in a way, it can be racist in itself. We shouldn't have to try and fit quotas. But if that's what needs to be done to ensure that minorities are represented in the media, then I don't see an issue with that. And I think that when it comes to kind of her taking accountability for racism, I think we have to tread very lightly with it, because we've had a lot of attacks against Reform, and Reform is, in a way, manipulating working class, angry people who have been screwed over by system their whole lives. And if we keep kind of punishing them for their what we deem as racist behaviour, the more underground they'll become. And that's how things like the National Front and EDL become a thing, because it's unregulated. And we should more try and correct racist behaviour rather than just punish it and bury it, because that's how horrible things end up happening. The more we bury this kind of attitude, that doesn't mean it's going to go away. It just means that people are going to talk about it in secret.
Yeah, of course. Will, do you agree? Do you think those remarks were racist?
I do think those remarks are racist. I think that it's telling of reform as a whole. Nigel Farage has since come out and said that he thinks that the comments were ugly but not deliberately racist. I think the bar is so low for reform that not being racist is considered okay. So he's already admitted that these comments are ugly, but is now not going a step further to really condemn them. He's defending them, if anything. And I think that really does summarise reform. But the bar for them is, we're not technically racist. We may say ugly things, but we're not saying racist things. If that's where reform is at, then I think that does say a lot about the party.
Yeah, I mean, Sarah has previously sort of caused a bit of controversy. So Zia Surfi was the party chairman at the time. She suggested a ban on the burqa during a speech in Parliament, which he criticised. So do we think that she should have the whip taken away, or is this proven that Reform are sticking with her?
I think it would be a good statement from Reform to take the whip away from her, because it shows that they do, as much as I don't agree with them politically, it would show that they do have something about them. They're not all just going to always appeal to the far right beliefs. They can see when bad has been said, they can see when bad has been done, and they will do something about it. So I believe they should. I don't think they will, but I believe they should. And I think it'd be a statement from them if they were to really act upon it and actually punish someone for saying something so inflammatory.
Logan, do you think they will?
I think they'll probably give her the option to resign. The issue with people like party whips is that they are there to control the party. If you have someone there who is just stating these things without any sort of consequence, for me, the question is what she's going to let them get away with. Usually party whips are for sort of votes. They are there to ensure that the party votes a particular way, but also they deal with the background of sort of like expenses and stuff like that, making sure that MPs are not scandalous. And the fact that she is saying something like this, for me, it makes me wonder what else would someone like that would allow to get away with. So I think they should give her the option to resign. If she declines it, I think she should be removed just to show the integrity of the party. Again, don't politically align with them, but in terms of party integrity, I'd expect this from Labour, Conservatives, Greens, Sinn Féin, anyone.
It shows a bit about them.
Yeah.
So if Reform do not do this, then do you think they are a racist party, sort of?
The issue with you can't... I don't know on the terms of like legislation or in the sense of like laws, I don't think in quotes you can call something racist. You can't have a racist party. Would it show that a lot of MPs, if they keep quiet about it, are they racist? If the shadow cabinet that they have, if they don't do anything about it, does that show that they're racist? They have to be very careful, because their whole sort of argument is that we're not racist. We want to fix the country by getting rid of certain groups, which is a very politically way to say that they are and not.
I think I respectfully disagree with you there. I think it's one of those things, quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. If you've got MPs that have clear racist remarks within them and that is all around the party, that is a reflection of the party itself. So I respectfully disagree. I think you probably could call Reform a racist party, in my opinion anyway.
I think that one of the big race issues with Reform isn't necessarily their policies or the people, their representatives. I think their issue is that they know that racist people vote for them. That's not to say everyone who votes Reform is racist, but they know. And if they don't call out racist behaviour, like what Sarah said, it leaves a space for real racist people, because some people would be watching that and think, I agree with that. I don't think any black and Asian people should be on TV. There are people that think that. And if she says these kind of almost dog whistles on, live TV, if she says these kind of things and doesn't retract it, she's creating a safe space for real, ugly, violent racism within Reform. And I think as a right-wing party, your top priority should be to deter that. Same with left-wing parties. I think the most important thing about the UK is democracy. That's just my personal opinion. As a left-wing party, your priority should be to deter extreme left-wing view holders who are a threat to democracy. And I think that as a party, if you're on either side, or even if you're a centre party, one of your priorities should be to not create a safe space for extremism, because it can so easily take over a party. And we've seen it happen countless times in history, especially when a party is appealing to an angry working class, because the angry working class is the majority of not just the UK, but the entire world's population. And it can be very powerful if used, well, inappropriately in this case, because, you know, Reform's telling people that immigration is the issue when it's not. That's always been the case in history. People have been told it's either Irish people or people of colour or gay people. It's always been the case. And I think we're heading down a really dangerous path if Reform doesn't take these comments seriously and doesn't hold her to account. I think she should resign or be removed.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's really cool, guys. Let's move on to the last topic of today, which is all about the Green Party, who recently reached 100,000 in its membership, a 45% increase since Zach Polansky took over as leader. I mean, there are many, many polls, but the kind of average that I'm seeing is around 16%, which is the highest that they've ever been. They're very, very close to Labour. 40% of 18 to 24-year-olds intend to vote for them, so it's looking pretty good for them at the moment, and we're still in the early days. So are they a threat to Reform, Labour, both, everybody?
I don't think they are at the moment. I think the issue is that you've got the young vote has always been the issue for every political party. Conservatives, Labour, Reform, whatever, have always relied on the older generation. They've never really tapped into the younger generation. I think they sort of realised it with Jeremy Corbyn. You've seen now a lot more political parties doing like TikToks, Instagram Reels, social media tapping into it and trying to sort of create these sort of like memes about it in order to engage with the youth vote. The issue is that although young people, I don't know the numerical value of how much they outweigh the older generation, is just getting them actually out the door. Like how many 18 to 20-year-olds are actually inclined to vote. I think it'll be interesting to see what they do in the next 3-4 years. I think...
Sorry, do you think their social media presence is good then, maybe, to get more...
100%. Social media is something that every political party should engage in. It's one of the... you can't rely on 18 to even 30, mid-30-year-olds looking at the news all the time, picking up a newspaper, or, if they want to vote a particular way, are they going to get like a party membership? Party membership isn't a real thing anymore. So I think if they actually engage on social media, maybe have someone, funny endorse them, or maybe someone in their political party is really good at comedy, maybe does a bit of stand-up or something, get him on as the face of your movement, just to sort of generate that younger movement going, I should go out to the polling station, I should vote, I want to see a change.
Yeah, of course. Who do you think, Charlie, is the biggest threat for the... Is it Labour and Reform should both be scared of? Do you agree?
I think that Green is a bigger threat to Labour, I would say. I think Reform, there are some people who are going to vote Reform and there's no changing it. But I think Green needs to go after people who would vote for Labour, and they also need to go after the more centre people who are voting for Reform. Because Reform isn't popular because the majority of England is racist and doesn't like immigrants. Reform is popular because they target working class people. And the majority of working class people are centre. They're not really bothered about politics because they don't have time to, because they're too busy working, and they've been screwed over by a system their whole lives. I think that Greens can take more votes away from Labour because, Labour voters, I think, are sick of them. I think we can see from the voter turnout in the election for Lucy Powell, we can see that people are kind of fed up of it. And it's been quite a disappointing Labour government. And I think that especially young people are looking for a new party to turn to. But I think there are people, I don't think that Greens can go after every Reform voter, because some of them, you're not going to convince them. Whereas Labour, I think a majority of Labour voters could be turned to Green. Yeah,
of course. Will, you've got quite a big hole in with that Green Party could fill with young people.
Yeah, massive. I'm talking what Logan said earlier about how they need a spokesperson. I think at the moment they've got that with Zach Polansky. He is so charismatic. He is to the left what Nigel Farage is to the right. For all the faults with the man, he's got character. He brings an element to politics that see from traditional politicians. There's a reason why Boris Johnson ended up as our Prime Minister. The people want character. The people want people that feel like they can do something.
Donald Trump as well.
Donald Trump as well, another perfect example of someone who isn't in the establishment, isn't so... I'm not sure what phrase to use. Maybe stuck up would be a phrase, but that's a bit divisive, I suppose. But someone who's not so set in their ways, someone who really feels like a genuine person, feels like a character, and I think that's what Zach Polanski is, and that's why he has caused this massive upsurge in Green Party membership and their popularity. And I do actually think that is going to cause a threat to both Reform and Labour, because at the moment people are sick of Labour. That's become very clear. I think Labour will have to do a lot between now and the next general election in order to try to maintain power. However, at the moment, the only alternative for a lot of people, at least how a lot of people think, is Reform, because Conservatives were terrible for so long that there is no world people want to go back to that, at least not for a little while. So Reform is kind of the next one up. As much as a lot of people, after speaking to people, I'm sure people come on this and speak to you about it, they might not all agree with all of Reform's policies, but people have always voted for what they think the lesser evil is. And at the moment, Reform seems like the lesser evil. But now that there's another party surging in popularity with Green Party, I think it is likely that we'll see more people go, wait a minute, we do have options. I think we could be seeing the two-party system finally breaking down.
Yeah.
And we could see someone that's not Labour or Conservative being the opposition and the party in power. So I think Green is a real threat to the establishment as a whole.
Do you think, someone mentioned it earlier on about your party. Do you think your party are potentially a threat to Green? Or maybe, I've asked the question, could the Greens win the 2029 election or form a coalition? Your party could potentially be part of that coalition. What do you think about that?
Go on, Charlie.
Thank you. I think that your party has had an unsuccessful start. I think that they have kind of proved almost every stereotype about the left with it just not being in touch. I don't think they've been prioritising the right issues, and it's kind of been almost a contest on who's more woke out of Jeremy Corbyn and Sarah Zoltana. And I think that a coalition with your party would possibly be more successful, just because I think if Labour and Green were to form a coalition, I think that would just end in Labour dominating it, and if it failed, Green would get the blame, because I just think there would be an imbalance of power. Obviously, Labour's a lot...
Do you think the Greens would do it if Reform are going to win, and the only way they could
Yes.
would be, yeah?
I would hope if Reform was going to win and that was how it was looking, and the only other way would be to form a coalition, I think the Greens have got a head on their shoulders, and they know that it's whether they have to form a coalition with someone they slightly disagree with, it's better than Reform. I hope it wouldn't have to be with Labour, just because I don't think we'd see Green policies if that happened. Your party, if they recovered from this PR nightmare of their first few months existing, then yeah, I think it would be great. But I do think your party doesn't appeal to a lot of people now, not because it's too left, because they've prioritised the wrong things in their marketing. And
there was a few things in your party where I believe Adan Hassan was making some transphobic comments, which I think a lot of trans people and allies were really trying to look for a party where there wasn't that type of thing. So that might have been another reason why a lot of people were not very happy with it. But also it's been a right mess with all the emails sent out and membership thing. It's definitely not helped.
Yeah, your party definitely is not off to a great start. I'm glad to agree. I think that it has potential. I still think it's a very young party. It is got a massive figurehead of Jeremy Corbyn leading it, obviously with Zara Sultana. But he is obviously a very popular name in British politics. Most people have heard of him. Maybe some hate him, maybe some love him, but people know him. And I do think that politics, at the end of the day, it's a popularity contest. You've got a big name there. That can be enough for you to lead the charge. If they are able to get through these issues that they're having, these teething issues, if you will, maybe they'll be able to, really focus on policy. They have that name already to spread the word. I think it is still. It's early to say, but I wouldn't say they're out. They're not out of the count. They're still playing.
I think the smartest move for them would be go with Lib Dems, with a sort of an older, more established party. They are sort of now making a swing back, with sort of Sir O'Davy calling out both Conservatives, Labour, Nigel Farage. Same with like the leader of the Greens, Zach Walensky, where it's one of those things where it's like, oh, finally someone's actually sort of mentioning what we're seeing now. You know, it's always been one of those annoyances for me, at least politically speaking, where sort of leaders sort of go and sort of ignore the issue and sort of just go, oh, it's just their party and stuff like that. They're not really taking them seriously, where I think if anything, if they were to get enough seats, even if just a small number, they could either form a very strong shadow government in which, if Reform won, maybe not every policy gets implemented, but they could also win with maybe having a bit of your party, a bit of Lib Dems, a bit of Green. I mean, in the Conservatives with Theresa May, they went with Munster. So you never know what's going to happen if they just need that bump of a majority.
Yeah, definitely. I think also with the Greens is that they seem to be calling for a wealth tax, which a lot of other people, like especially Labour, seem to be scared to do. I mean, the argument often is put a wealth tax in, no, because I'll leave the country. But he seems to be dealing with that pretty well. What do you think about that, Charlie? Yeah.
I think that some of the Labour policies we've seen in this period of Keir Starmer being in power has been some of the least Labour activities. I remember waking up one morning and being told Labour was proposing a welfare cuts with PIP and all that. And I thought my friends were joking. I was like, what? No, they're not. Why would they do that? And I think that Green is, whether it's successful or not, Green is doing what left-wing politicians have always said they're going to do, and they just haven't. I think that almost every Labour, government I can think of has been a disappointment. I think it's because the Labours that tend to get voted in are the more centre ones, and they're not traditional. I would say that's probably the reason for that. I mean, I think there's a reason why Jeremy Corbyn didn't get voted in when he was head of Labour, and that's because he was too left for the majority's liking. But now, with young people being able to vote now, I mean, I can vote this year, and I could tell you now, I think a lot of people I know would vote Green, and they're not scared of being too left, because a lot of people are stuck in the past with Tony Blair, and they're convinced that they should never vote Labour again because of that. But sorry, my mind just went
No, that's fine. No.
My mind just went
So,
back there.
did anyone here think that a wealth tax would not work, or it would work?
The wealth tax works anyway. It happens in Sweden. If you don't know, essentially what they do, the best one to come up, for example, is schooling and parking fines. There's no private schools, and all the schools, you can't choose where to send your kid, essentially. They just go, you're going to send your kid there, that's the closest school, which means that all these millionaires and all these, rich families have to essentially fund everywhere because they can, and that means that everyone gets a base level of education that is to an extremely high standard because they have to. And for their parking fines, it's not based on like a numerical value. If like a rich person gets caught speeding 90 miles per hour, might get a slap on the wrist and £100 fine, whereas in Sweden, it's based off how much you earn per year. So something like a system like that is already functioning. We're just really afraid for some reason, especially as a Labour government, to sort of tax the rich, which is what we're not supposed to do, but it is their basis.
So we're about to finish, but I'm going to ask one more question, a yes or no answer, starting with you. Do you think Labour will put in a wealth tax?
No.
No.
Okay, very, very interesting. Well, that is the end of the show. Thank you so much to our guest for the first ever show. We'll be back next week here on Quays TV. That's it, yeah, great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.